Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanMuscle.com, and today we're taking a closer look at and installing the Spectre Performance Cold Air Intake available for the 2011 and newer 5.7 HEMI Challenger. Check this out if you're looking to ditch your factory cold air intake and replacing it with a very budget-friendly cold air intake that's going to improve airflow to the engine bay for a better breathing engine, as well as give you a small bump in horsepower and torque numbers, something around single digits, as well as an improved throttle response and acceleration. This particular option here is going to include a reusable and washable oil filter that's a high performance, high filtration option. It's a little smaller than some of the other options out there, some of the more premium options. This one is going to outperform that factory airbox and the factory paper element filter, which we'll take a slightly closer look at in just a little bit, side by side. This one here, again, is a non-woven synthetic material. It's very durable. It's very high in its filtration capabilities. Being an oiled filter, it is going to trap in some of those extra small particles, making sure they don't make its way into your intake, robbing you of some of that power. Because it is washable, when it comes time for routine maintenance, no need to pick up a new filter like you would have to with your factory paper element. Pop this off, wash it, re-oil it, throw it right back in. It's as simple as that. The rest of the tubing here is made from an aluminum. This is essentially a straight pipe, as you can see. It's very, very unrestrictive. It doesn't have any kinks like your factory tubing would. Really good for streamlining airflow, and it's got a welded on fitting there for your factory breather line. That's also going to be replaced and extended with this hose here included in the kit from Spectre. You also have a powder-coated heat shield, which is going to come with its own weather stripping that we'll install in a little bit here to trap in the cold air, making sure it's pulling in all of the cold air necessary for your intake, while also trapping out the engine heat. It's going to seal into the inside of your hood, making sure that the engine heat stays out. It also has a flexible rubber elbow to make sure it's connected to the throttle body for an air leak-free finish. All new clamps are included in the kit, as well as couplers. This particular kit is one of, if not the most budget-friendly option in the category. Comes in right around 150 bucks. And because of that, you're not going to get all the bells and whistles as some of the more expensive or more premium options out there that you would expect from Air Raid and InGen, JLT, so on and so forth. This particular option is really just meant to help you get a better breathing engine without spending the extra bucks on all the bells and whistles that you might not want or need for your 5.7. If that's what you're looking for, this is a great way to go under the hood. The polished finish does give you a nice bright finish under the hood, stands out from the crowd. Make sure that you know it's an aftermarket intake without blending in like some of the powder-coated options out there. With that said, install 1 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. Anybody can tackle this in the driveway at home with very simple hand tools in about an hour, maybe 2 at the absolute most. I'll take you guys through every step of the process, but first, I want to throw up our factory intake on the table and just show you guys some of the similarities and differences. Then we'll start assembling our Spectre option and drop it into our 5.7. Tools used in this install include an impact gun, a ratchet, 6, 8, and 16 millimeter deep sockets, flathead screwdriver, and wire cutters. All right, step number 1 for the uninstall, of course, just pop off your engine cover. Now, of course, we're working with a 5.7. This may be a little bit different for the guys out there with a 6.1, but shouldn't vary too much. Just pop off that engine cover and just set it aside. Next up, we're going to do our sensor right on the side of the tubing that connects to the throttle body. It's really just a pinch and disconnect. From there, you actually want to remove the fitting for the sensor itself, which you're just going to twist and pull straight back on. This is extremely sensitive, so set this aside and just make sure it's out of the way of any danger. Next up here, grab an 8 millimeter socket or a flathead screwdriver, and we're just going to loosen up the clamp holding the intake tubing to the throttle body. From there, you should be able to just twist it up, pull this back. Before we can remove this, we have one more bolt to remove as well as a hose, and then the whole thing will come off in one piece. All right, next step is the bolt holding the factory heat shield to the front support. That's also an 8 millimeter. Just loosen that up and take that out. From here, we're gonna disconnect the hose, the breather line on this end. Just gonna wiggle it back and forth and pull it straight back. At this point, we should be able to disconnect this from the throttle body and pull it all up in one piece. All right, this will pull straight up, pull out of the throttle body. Can lift up on this end here, and we're just gonna set all this aside. Now this bracket was used to hold on that factory intake at the extension portion, so we're just gonna go ahead and remove it because we're not gonna need it for our aftermarket intake. So I'm gonna take a 16 millimeter socket and just remove this bolt. At this point, you can grab a 15 millimeter wrench to hold the inside bolt. Grab your 16 socket again and just pop off the nut on the outside. She can be a little rusty. Right? This way the bracket's out of the way, but there isn't an open hole there. You can just thread the bolt back in there and tighten up that nut. Now, as you can see, we got our factory intake off of our 5.7 on the table next to the Spectre option, and I already took you through all the details of the Spectre intake, but giving you just a brief look at what that looks like next to your factory tubing, you can see it's a night and day difference. While this is the most affordable, budget-friendly option, it is still a big upgrade as far as airflow. Your factory tubing here being an all one-piece connection has that accordion-like center, which does help it flex under the hood, but it's also going to create a little bit more air turbulence, which then of course can rob you of a little bit of power without streamlining that airflow like this one will. Because it is unrestricted, you can expect a small bump in that throttle response and acceleration. The factory intake does have a pretty extensive heat shield or air box trapping in that paper element filter. While we don't have the full air box here with our cold air intake, we do just have that heat shield. You can expect that to probably get a little bit more of the hot air coming through than you would expect with a full air box, but again, it is going to replace your filter with something a lot more high quality. You can expect this to filter out a lot more particles than your factory filter ever could, especially with it being an oiled option, which does tend to trap a lot more particles than a dry filter would. Now, the debate between dry and oiled filters has been going on a while. Now, for most people, it's not going to matter. They're within a 1% difference of each other as far as capabilities. It is typically known that oiled filters trap more particles, but because it is oiled, that tends to get clogged up a little bit more, requiring a little bit more maintenance a little more frequently, while as a dry filter is a little better for guys in dry climate areas, seeing a lot more air pollution and debris, because it does do a better job of pulling in more cold air and trapping particles as well. So with that all in mind, they are within a 1% difference, and to most people, it's not going to make much of a difference here. Now, this is an oiled filter, like I said, which does trap a little bit more particles, but because of that, requires some maintenance. When you do pop this off and it's time to clean, you'll have to re-oil it and throw it right back in. That takes no time at all, and you can pick up that oil at your local auto parts store to get that taken care of every couple of thousand miles when you do your routine maintenance. With all that said, I want to get this off the table. We have a couple of things to assemble. We've already gotten our factory air sensor off of our intake under the hood. That's going to transfer over to the open hole on our elbow with a grommet, so we're going to assemble that, as well as assembling some of the couplers and the weather stripping on our heat shield. First things first, let's get rid of this. All right, at this point, you want to take that elbow that's going to connect to your throttle body here, go to the open hole, grab the grommet, include it in the kit, and that's going to insert into this open hole to hold your factory sensor. You're just going to pinch it and push it through so that half of it's on the inside, half of it's on the outside. The ring there will hug perfectly and get nice and tight. Your factory sensor will install right onto the end of this. Now, this might take a little bit of time and patience, but you can just rotate this and finesse it into the hole. Once that's in place, you want to make sure you're orienting this toward the throttle body, and that's good to go. Next up, I'm going to assemble our weather stripping to our heat shield. Now, it's essentially going to drop into the vehicle just like this, and we're going to assemble weather stripping over the top end portion, as well as the side going down to the bottom. You're given two pieces in the kit. We're going to take one of those pieces and go across the side here. Just going to insert that all around the edges, slide that up to the top, and feed it all the way around. Now, this may require you to trim this weather stripping when it gets to the end here, which it looks like it is going to, but if we feed it all the way up here, yeah, see, we have a couple of maybe about 2 inches, 1.5 inches that we're gonna have to trim off. So grab your wire cutters and just trim that excess. You can peel this back, grab those wire cutters, and because there is a little bit of aluminum or metal in here holding it steady, it might take a little bit of elbow grease to pinch through. You can see that coming through. Just pull that straight off, and then pop that excess back down. Perfect. Now we can do the same thing to the top end. And again, we have a little bit of excess, so we're gonna go ahead and cut that excess off. At this point, we're going to install our velocity stack that comes out of that filter, as you just saw, into the back end of our heat shield. We're going to need a clamp for that as well. The clamp is going to go over one portion of our coupler. While this goes through, lift this up. We're going to install the coupler to the outside. At this point, we can get that nice and snug with our socket, but enough so that we can still have room for adjustment. So once you have this in place and oriented where you need it to be, grab your 8mm socket and just tighten that down. Now, of course, if we need to make room for adjustment later on, we still have that rotational ability and we can tighten that down in just a little bit, but for now, that's nice and snug. At this point, we can set our heat shield aside, bring that elbow back on, and start putting clamps in place over the end of this elbow. So we have a clamp in place here. I'm just going to tighten this down slightly, just so it hugs. That way it's hugging the elbow. Same thing is going to go on the opposite end. At this point, we can head into the vehicle and start assembling this into position. All right, the first step is to grab that elbow and set it into place on your throttle body. I like to have those bolt heads on the clamps rotated up and easily accessible, so that way we can grab our socket and tighten it down. All right, the next step is to actually install our heat shield. Now, before we can do so, grab the grommet included in the kit that has the threading. Insert that threading into the factory grommet on your wheel well. Might take a little elbow grease to push that all the way in. Perfect. Once that's seated and secured, grab your heat shield. We're going to put that into place. This bracket on the bottom, you're going to use your 16mm bolt included in the kit to bolt that to the threading in that grommet. So this goes straight down just like this. That bracket lines up with your factory retainer hole. Grab the 16mm bolt and washer, thread that through by hand. At this point, you can grab your 16mm socket and tighten that down. Once that's bolted down to the inner fender well, grab your factory 8mm bolt and tighten it up to the top bracket. The next step is your intake tubing. Now, before we can pop that into place, you want to grab that final clamp and set it on over this coupler, rotating it so that it's facing upwards. Now, you want to make sure the hose fitting is in the proper location because that's going to connect here. We're going to go into the coupler and then the coupler on our heat shield. Push that into place and extend it into the elbow. You can always loosen up that clamp if you need a little bit more flexibility. All right, once you have that into place, grab your 8mm socket and tighten down both of those clamps. Next up is your clamp with the filter. Now, you can rotate this however you'd like. Some guys, you might like the Spectre name facing upward, but because it's facing the inside of the engine bay, it's not really legible from this corner. What we're going to do is rotate that downward, pop this on over that velocity stack, grab our 8mm socket, and tighten that down. Now for your breather hose, you're actually completely replacing this factory one, so we are going to have to pull this off. In order to do that, just pull straight back, it'll disconnect. I like to save this for later in case you ever want to revert back to stock. At this point, you want to insert those small hose clamps. This one's going to go over the new hose fitting on your intake tubing. The other one you want to put on this end to go into that factory location. Now these hose clamps are 6mm screws. So I'm going to use my 6mm socket here to tighten that down. There's only 2 steps left. Step number 1, reconnect our MAF sensor harness. Once you hear that click, just throw on your engine cover. Once that's popped in place, you're good to go. Well guys, that's gonna wrap up my review and install for the Spectre Performance Cold Air Intake fitting the 11 newer 5.7 Challenger. Check this out right here at AmericanMuscle.com.